Hello, welcome back to our Q&A. I am Christina. I'm a senior community manager here at Mojang, and you might recognize me from being text in the chat the last 2 days. But I've finally been let out, and I am here surrounded by our incredible creator team, and we've got a bunch of questions from all of you. But please feel free to put more in the chat because we love to hear from you. But do we want to start by just going down and introducing ourselves? Some of you obviously have already been on the stream, but for anyone just tuning in, just like a quick intro about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dana. I am an engineer over at Gameplay Systems.
I'm Ayana. I am also an engineer at Gameplay Systems.
I guess I'll go with me. I'm Steven. I'm a PM on Gameplay Systems.
I am Fanny. I'm an engineering manager in Gameplay Systems.
Hey, I'm Jake, and I lead the API infrastructure team. So it's things like scripting and commands.
And hi, I'm Angelica. I'm a PM on the creator team. So I work with all these lovely people, and no, we did not coordinate wearing black. It just happened.
Donald?
Oh, sure. I'm Donald. I'm the director of the Marketplace Partner Program. And I'm just kind of crashing this party because I want to be here in case you have questions about the partner program.
And yeah, go for it.
I'm Brock. I'm an engineering lead on Gameplay Systems. Been doing all the fun things with blocks. Popped into some Discord servers and Brock Needs Coffee because I do. And to be fair, I always wear black shirts, so the other people just copied that.
Well, hey, I'm in white, so let's jump in with our first question. It's from Q Desperation. They ask, hello, do you plan to update Jigsaw generation to have the structures be able to generate like villages, to be able to add structures that look natural to the generation around it?
Thanks, Q, for the question. So actually, a lot of our creator partners are trying to use what we have exposed, and they are generating village-like structures. To be specific, villages themselves aren't completely data-driven yet. Only Trail Ruins is, but they've been using what we've exposed with Trail Ruins to generate village-like structures. And depending on how you modify the start height, if you're doing terrain matching, which I see is the next question, or if let's say a house is rigid, you can definitely make your structures look like villages. Of course, there is a lot of issues we're trying to fix here and there. We've gotten a lot of great feedback so far. So there's a bit of hiccups here and there, and we're working on it. But for now, yes, you should be able to make village-like structures.
Well, amazing segue, because as you said, our next question is, will you be able to make terrain matching possible for custom structures?
Yes, right now, terrain matching and rigid are both exposed, so you can definitely use that for your structures. It's a little finicky, but know that we are working on it, so please work together, work with us, and make sure that the experience is smooth for you guys.
Thank you so much. Vlad360 asks, are there any plans to bring the capability for custom blocks to be off-centered, like vanilla grass and flowers?
I can talk to that one. Yes, we are actually actively working on that one, so expected in the near term to make its way into experimental.
Naker asks, are there plans to have custom tile entities, block actors?
Yeah, I can talk to this one. So when we talked about the basic wood set before, it sort of included, I didn't go through every single block in there, but you might have noticed if you think of every block that is in the wood set, one of them is signs, and signs are tile entities or block entities. So we know we do actually have to get to that in just our immediate roadmap. So yes, they will make their way through. We don't know what they'll be called yet, but we will bring some way for you to have that functionality in data.
Dreamy Moonglow asks, can you make things like bushy leaves that stick out beyond one block but don't prevent other blocks from being placed next to it?
I can answer that one too. You can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go for it, Stephen. Yeah.
No, right now you can create geometry that goes beyond 16 by 16. And if you just change the geometry to be bigger without changing the collision box or selection box, then you would still be able to place blocks that are next to it.
Awesome. Sheepman asks, is there a way to recreate block overlays similar to that of the carved pumpkin?
I can take this one. I think it's up to, between Brock or I, one of us can take this one.
You're doing such a great job. Keep going, man. Keep going. You're on a streak.
Okay, I can totally take it. So we've given the ability to sort of like put a block on your head, but we have not started to look at how to do like a on-screen overlay at the same time. I think there's a lot of UI-related things that need to come into place to make that data-driven, so it's probably a little further away for us to start thinking about.
I'm just going to bring Steven to all the things I do because he articulates the things in my head better than I can. So.
Let's see. So Vlad360 has another question. Can we expect the issue, in quotes, with vanilla blocks like fence and walls connecting to the custom non-solid blocks to get some kind of solution to be changed? Maybe some kind of non-connectable component.
So this one, we sort of answered this one a little bit if you were watching the roadmap section. So we start to talk about voxel shapes, and without going like super deep into them, one of the things that they do is that without needing to define all of the blocks that something would connect to, you could have your fence, and when it gets to the edge, instead of, I know right now if you recreate a fence, you would get to the edge, and if there's grass, it'll just like, oh, I'm connecting to grass, and it'll connect. What voxel shapes will do is it'll make it so that it actually checks, hey, this shape isn't something I should be able to connect to, and then it would prevent that connection visually. So we are actively working on having a solution for that so that you have a simple way to be able to recreate like fence and wall mechanics.
All right, you are not allowed to answer this next question. Mad Lad asks, in regards to feature scope, how do you choose which creator features to prioritize when scoping and planning for the future?
It's actually a perfect one for Steven to answer. Being a PM.
Or Angelica.
Yeah,
I
Angelica's really
think.
good on there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take it?
Yes.
Sure.
So when we talk about the scope of creator features, we ask all our creators. So we have a lot of touch points through surveys and different ways of reaching out to see what's important. Discord, we have a lot of ways where we're gathering all of that. And then we work with our amazing technical folks to say, what can we possibly do? And what can we bring to bring the most value as soon as we possibly can? Because some things, you wouldn't believe this, but our platform is pretty technically complex. Not everything is easy. And so that comes into play too. So what can we do that people really want and that we can make easily and can lead to really cool stuff? And then we plan that out and we try to bring things as soon as they're available until we can get something like the wood set. Do you know, like there's so many individual things that are going to have to be done to make a wood set. So yeah, it's a fun game of Tetris, I'll say, and not the Jigarbob kind. Yeah.
Item Blend asks, will you add new and better content for add-on creators in future vanilla drops?
Can try to take that. Our vanilla team isn't represented here, but they have a whole creative process to decide what the next drop is, right? And they are looking similar to creators, how Angelica said, we reach out and understand our creators what they want. Vanilla does the same for players, right? They reach out, they understand, and they create a theme for a drop that will appeal for the broadest kind of players as possible. And as part of that, they work really closely with Angelica and with us to think about what of that can we also give to creators. They also have in mind what can they expand through that. So we're not just building capabilities, but we are adding amazing things like sound variations. Earlier in a session today, we were talking about that came from the Spring to Life drop. They were thinking about variations for the chicken and the pig, and as that, it's like, how do we make them unique? So we add sounds. So the vanilla team is considering all of these variables when they pick the next drop. So yes, hopefully we will be giving you more exciting things for add-ons in future drops.
Thanks for that answer. Poppy Sop asks, any docs and updates for attachables, like tutorials on how to change the models, custom animation, etc.? And you are out of timeout.
I'm not aware of any recent ones that we are doing, but we're always looking at this space. It's one that is very important. We do have support for this, I believe, on Blockbench, right? Am I crazy there? So that is a good way, if you're familiar with the Blockbench tool, that is a good way to be able to reason more easily about what they mean and how to use them. We also have some documentation for them in our learning portal as well. And I mentioned recently that we have been doing some also optimization so that they are easier to use. But I am not aware of any major thing that we're planning to do in that space.
Let's see. Could we have animations for the blocks in the future?
I can talk to this one. I think it depends on what you're looking for. So right now, you actually can do animations on blocks if you mean the 2D type. So if you want to do something like a magma cube where it does the sort of like breathing look, like where it glows in and out, you can do that. We support flipbook textures on blocks. If you mean like a conduit where it does the like whole I'm powered up and I float into the air and particles like fly around from it, not at the moment, but we are looking as part of doing block entities, part of the earlier question, that kind of functionality would be something that we'd need to bring forward as well. So that one's a much further into the future problem, but your first one you can solve now.
Speaking of entities, Jean Majid asks, will we get a light emitter for entities?
Maybe someday. It's not something that I'm aware that we are thinking about. Like, yeah.
All right. Dane wants to know, are there plans on detecting when an entity's collision box enters a block? For example, making custom fire blocks.
I'm pretty sure. Couldn't you be able to do that right now?
We have like step on and things like that, but I'm not sure we actually have
Like
entering the collision box. Yeah.
That it sounds like very interesting and useful API to add. Yeah.
Yeah. It would definitely fall in the custom component space. Like we know that like this kind of functionality is built for the combination of scripting and JSON. So I think if we do go into that space, it would probably be with some helpful custom components on a block.
And speaking of custom components, Q wants to know, will custom components v2 be possible to also use conditions? For example, when a block has a state that makes it active, it'll trigger a custom component only when active is true. Question mark.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that we've thought a ton about kind of intertwining the traditional JSON filters and triggers and stuff like that with the custom components. Today you could kind of accomplish that, I think, if you... yeah, I guess it would have to be a pretty script-based solution, because I don't think you can actually remove components from different block states, or different blocks with different states. So, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it would be kind of interesting to look through all the different kind of top-level filters and triggers like that, and maybe combine those two, because you could implement all of that in scripting, but it would be a nice portable solution if you could maybe take a lot of those concepts from the entity files and bring it over to blocks and items.
Awesome. Next question's from Maxolotl, whose username I love. I have a question related to the player entity. Will we ever get the ability to change a player's camera height in first person, similar to how it changes in Java when we change our height in Java?
It's funny. Some of us were discussing that because we saw that question before, and we were like, can't we do that already? But we're sure.
So we know there are ways that you could mimic it that have been done where like you take the third person camera and you change the vertical offset so it's above the character, so you get a higher view. There is an existing first person camera preset, but we haven't really gone into the first person camera to like make a lot of those things really customizable yet. So there's just a basic preset there, but I don't think you can actively change the height. But it's definitely something as we look at more like doing more in the camera space where that could be something that we go back to.
And
Jiggerbob. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in. And speaking of scope, while we have focused on those areas of the camera that we've heard are the most important, that first person, having a detached first person, is kind of next on the list if we do anything, but we don't have any plans right now because we're really working on some cool stuff with field of view and, can I say splines? So we'll see if we get to it. If it's important, let me know.
Thank you. Our next question is actually from Jigarbov. What happens if we put a custom block for an add-on that doesn't exist in a biome?
I have to think through, make sure I understand all of the questions. So if we have a custom block and it doesn't exist in a biome, I'm gonna try to take this as like if I want to use a custom block in a new biome, like maybe question mark. If that is the case, I can say like I know we've just recently had the experiment for biomes. You could have a custom block that generates into the world and replaces any of the blocks that you would want. It could be a new block that replaces part of a tree. It could be your new ground block. All of those are viable. They don't have to be vanilla blocks that are there in your new biome.
And I'm not sure where the question was going, Jake, but like if you happen to remove the add-on, the world is not broken then, because that's what I understood from the question. Like if the add-on happened to disappear and the biome is still there, like they just become our default, I don't know what this is, block. But the world doesn't break. Yeah.
Question mark.
And there is another maybe approach to that is if in add-ons, who wins? You know, if you have a biome and then you have custom blocks and you're doing features and feature rules and you have a multiple add-ons, who wins? That is something we're kind of testing through to make sure that what's expected happens. But we're aware of some, kind of weird like player things that might happen.
Laura has a question. She says, I don't know a thing about coding. Can I code on the notepad and it works?
Yes. Although that's kind of hard mode, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it, Brock.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's probably more your role than mine, but yes, there's also a lot of helpful creator tools that the creator teams put out kind of to get started boilerplate things that can help you. I think like Jake said, coding in a notepad is definitely hard mode. So it's not going to give you some like the nice autocomplete sort of thing. But yeah, it'll technically work. But there's a lot of good tutorials how to get started on the Learning Portal and some of the creator tools to put out there.
Yeah, the Learning Portal has some links to both tutorials and some sample projects that you can download and kind of help you bootstrap maybe a bigger project a little bit easier than starting from scratch. So those can be some really nice resources to explore.
Vlad360 says, can we expect block sounds like step, ambient, power on off to get fixed anytime soon? Because currently the only custom block sounds that can be created are place, hit, and break.
Okay. Take it. We know that audio is actually one area that we haven't looked at very deeply. We are aware that there's so many pain points in this area that we want to address. It's just like Angelica was saying, we have many sources and we try to do what is most valuable. Audio hasn't bubbled up yet, but it keeps being there close to the top for us to address. So when we get there, one of our top priorities is actually to allow the creation of custom sound events so that you can do whatever sound that you want. So when we get there, that is probably one of the first things that we would go after.
Serti, when will the ability to get equipable components from all entities be added to the script API?
I think I want to attempt to answer the equipable one and then the entity hort before event together. I think there's tons of APIs that we can keep adding. There was a big push to expose as much as possible when we release scripting, but we are aware that there's infinite possibilities of how much more we could do. So help us by prioritizing what is important to us. Angelica has her ear perked up to hear what is most important. Equipable component was something that we ended up actually designing but not releasing because it hasn't bubbled up to the top. So if that's something that you care about, please let us know. And I will answer about entity hort before event because there's at least 2 questions about when we are going to expose that event for scripting. That is one that has actually a complex history. Just in all transparency, we started looking at it, we spent a lot of time looking at it, and every time we just got scared of it. Exposing it has a lot of implications for our platform, basically. It can cause a lot of problems. So we're trying to be very careful before exposing that. But yeah, tell us which seems that it's something that you care about, and we can look at how to make it possible without breaking everything.
I love this next question. Luce asks, can anyone become a creator, or do you need to be hired by Mojang?
think Donald is perfect for that one.
Yes, I have a question. Haha. I mean, anyone can become a creator. I take a more extreme stance than Kayla does, in the sense that I think the moment that you put down a wood block or make a crafting table, you're a creator. I mean, if you play Minecraft, fundamentally it's about creating your own world, and it is every time you put down a block. I mean, that world becomes unique and it's your own. So, but I know that's just more of a philosophical statement than a practical one. um, you can become a creator, and there's a lot of, I mean, there's an amazing creator ecosystem out there. You know, if you look at in the Java ecosystem and all the incredible creators, people who are, you know, making mods, and but also folks that are creating content, working with like the server operators. You know, there is on Bedrock we have like MC Pedal and all these really cool platforms where, you know, people, communities are sharing stuff. There's tremendous amount of opportunity. And I would say as well that, you know, there are, I mentioned this in the earlier session, that there's a really great website called bucketofcrabs.net, which is, it's kind of a gig economy for Minecraft creators. There's a lot of our partner studios are looking for talented artists and coders and designers. You know, you can put your skills to the test and develop them. In many different ways, and it provides opportunities for you, and allows you to expand your network. You know, get to know everyone, because you never know when somebody that you meet today might 5 years later be in a position to help you out, or vice versa. And it's that connective tissue between everybody that really helps out. And I guess, you know, I'll just quickly repeat some of the advice I had earlier, which is, you know, going to the creator portal, going to the creator channel, going through the tutorials. If you have stuff that you already are really proud of and you want to show off, we have 3 publishers that we talk about on minecraft.net/partners that you can work with now and get your content on the marketplace, which is probably, it's that and working with some of our existing partners are the best ways for you to get noticed, for us to recognize your talent, and we might reach out to you and talk to you about having a partnership. And just to close off with it, I was at a talk recently where there was a really it was a fabulous like creative director who was talking through their history of like working in the video game industry, and you know, they said that you you may not find like your goal may be to like come and work at Mojang or work at Minecraft, but don't undersell any opportunities that you have in front of you. And he talked about, you know, if you get a job making graphics for the Weather Channel, that might seem like, wow, that's not like Minecraft. That's nothing like, you know, it's not the direction I want. But in taking a job like that, you could become an expert in environmental effects and understanding how like rain and weather and tornadoes work. And that stuff can make you a subject matter expert. And you can then apply that into a space, and it might help you to actually go and find the kinds of you know, career that you want, building off of something that at the time doesn't even seem like it's, you know, the direction. So you know, be passionate, explore everything that's available to you, and always keep your avenues open is my thought.
Really,
Can
really
I
awesome life advice, Donald. Thank you.
can I add to that? Oh,
Everyone started.
Brock and I
Sorry.
both want to add things.
Go for
so I
it.
just want to add one quick thing to that, which is I have been at Mojang for 2 years now. Prior to me here, I had 0 game development experience. I actually went to school to be a teacher, English degree, and then did a bunch of various things, worked at different software engineering teams, and then saw the opportunity to work at Mojang and like just went for it. And Fanny, who's also on this call, was like, yes, you're the guy. So I'm the guy. But yeah, just I take every opportunity you can to learn and just try things out. And, you know, don't be afraid to just apply for things. Let other people tell you, you know, right? Like, don't count yourself out. Just keep trying and keep learning. And yeah, I think eventually you'll get there, because yeah, I'm here. I don't know how I got here. I'm glad to keep me here, but yeah, yeah, just keep trying.
And I was going to add that I am not technical at all, but I like stories. And so one of the most fun things I had is with the camera, because you don't have to write code. You can play with commands. And I was able to, kind of do this whole story just using commands in the game with the camera and moving my player and having the fades. So, go to the learn.com site and play around.
Yes, really good advice from everyone here. Let's dive back into questions. Mad Lad wants to know if we've ever considered implementing a formal inter-add-on communication system in Script API. The current method, using script events and component validations, seems a bit janky to use.
Yeah, every time we see examples shown earlier today where add-ons can communicate via things like script event, we always see that and wince a little bit because that's not what we implemented that feature for initially. And I think it's really cool that creators find these avenues to do these things, and clearly it's working for them, even if it is a bit janky. We have thought about this a lot. We don't have it on our immediate roadmap, but I think it's definitely kind of blossoming into a scenario that a lot of creators want, especially as the add-on space grows more and more, and the concept of kind of cooperative add-ons becomes more formal. So I don't have anything to share today, but we are definitely thinking about it, especially as we start doing things like custom commands in script, in add-ons and stuff like that. So more to come at some point, hopefully. Non-committal as I can be.
It's perfect. We sort of touched on this already, but a few questions about the entity hurt before event for script API. Is there anything else that we wanted to add to that one?
No, like I mentioned, like we really, like I hear that people are interested. It really is more about how to expose it without breaking. Yeah, or actually, honestly, it's a lot about how to make sure that you can build experience that makes sense with it and you are not breaking things inadvertently. It's not about the platform breaking, but about it working like you expect it to work. So that is what it's proving very difficult. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Never Ending Sandbox asks, how can we get data out of the game, like scores and leaderboards, player stats, etc.?
It's also a pretty scripting question, in my opinion. I think scripting's probably the only answer to that today. Mm-hmm. We actually have a networking library that a lot of people probably haven't used because it's only available on dedicated server today. But it actually allows you to make things like REST requests with scripting, which is kind of neat. It's an interesting problem. We've thought about things like this, being able to write a file to disk or something. It's a really scary thing to think about, especially in terms of security sandboxing of people's scripts and stuff. So we're definitely still thinking about it. We're thinking about it for creators. We're thinking about it for server owners, the Minecraft editor, things like that. There's a lot of scenarios that I think taking data out of the game so that you can use it in other tools would be really interesting. So we're definitely still thinking about it. But see my previous non-committal comment in terms of timeline. If you have specific scenarios, I like that this talked about scoreboards and things like that. If you have other specific scenarios, definitely feel free to share those with us because those really help kind of get us in the mind space of creators and figure out what solutions might work here.
Kyoga asks, what is the current vision of what the creators community knows as the connectable block trait?
Yeah, I think this is definitely our voxel shape future.
Yep.
will come and save the day here. I think the big thing is we've definitely seen like a lot of the things that creators have made where like you place your block down and then you place your next one down and there's that, I'm going to call it that lag in between because you have to now manually do the check of when this block has changed, change me as well in script. So what we bring to the table, like I said, it's probably some combination of a voxel shape just doing that check automatically for you, and maybe some scripting to be able to like be informed of that change happening is probably going to be the future for where this goes.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add to that is like as we go down this block roadmap that Steven shared before, we try to think about like what are all the scenarios that like you mentioned, a basic wood set can do, and not just like, oh, here's this one API or here's this one thing in JSON to do it, but like what makes sense from a platform to combine those things to give that sort of behavior and experience to creators. And so we do make the joke at least internally my team, they're like, oh, voxel shapes, that'll solve that, that'll solve that. So that is very critical to like a lot of the things we want to do with blocks and thinking about the basic wood set. So it is definitely on our mind and on the roadmap and planned. So stay tuned. I don't know how much Steven shared about the roadmap.
Humble Gallipot asks, custom blocks no longer have events. How would I call an event on a block like the bee does to the beehive?
Yeah, I can take this one. So this one we did talk about in the block roadmap as well, or actually no, we talked about in the entity part of the roadmap. So we know that both like the bee talking to the beehive or the creaking talking to the heartwood block, that we don't really have a modern solution for that one. So we are looking at like custom components with some data-driven events being the solution for it. So you could have like a custom component that you've added that is checking for an event that your entity is sending, so that you could replicate like the beehive knowing that like the bee is coming back, or that the heartwood block knows that it needs to send particles to wherever the creaking is. So it's actively something that we are looking at bringing to data.
Yeah, for some background, it's if you are familiar with the old experimental item and block events, the events that existed on there and the events that exist on custom components for blocks and items today look very similar, and so that was the direction that we thought we could take custom events and kind of empower them a little bit more scripting.
Poppysop asks, is there any way to change the geometry for vanilla blocks using resource packs only? And if not, then do you have plans on exposing them?
Yes. I mean, so to answer the first
That was my
part,
response too. Yeah.
so to answer the first part, that one I can do easily, which is you can do that now. So if you want to change the geometry on a vanilla block using a resource pack, you could change the block shape. So you can change the block shape to be one of the pre-existing block shapes, and that will totally work for you. If you mean exposing them as in, I want to make my new geometry that looks like a statue and make that be what like grass looks like, that's not something that we are actively working on right now, but we also know that it is it's a highly wanted feature to sort of have like my client looks like this for these blocks, and the server says I handle all of the functionality, so that we have like a cleaner split between the two, because we know it's a little muddied on what is happening in a behavior pack and a resource pack when you just want to change visually what a block looks like.
Let's see. Jiggerbob says, love server UI. Any plans to be able to get some real-time UI windows without having to close and reopen on every change?
I will say there are plans, and that's probably about as much firm detail I can give. Definitely a scenario that we're thinking about for server UI. It's clear that there's a lot of avenues that creators really, really want out of UI, and we think server UI or something like server UI can serve a lot of those scenarios. So real-time kind of updating the data in forms and getting the input from players back to the server without having to do some show hide forms stuff is definitely one of the scenarios we're thinking about.
Kyoga asks, are there any plans on updating the runtime identifier system for entities? If so, any information we can get about it?
It's interesting. We'd love to know what sort of updates you're thinking about. But where we are at with runtime identifiers is that it's actually not a good model to follow for Minecraft, right? Like what we're doing is exposing a lot of unknown behavior to creators that we change and we break. So instead of that, we're focusing on actually exposing very clear APIs into the engine. So components that are well defined, the scripting events that are well defined, so that you can use them and know what they're actually going to do in a predictable way. Whereas runtime identifiers was just a quick shortcut that we took at the beginning of our days of creating a platform, just to give as much functionality as possible. But it does have the result that unfortunately, like, it breaks because it's not a clearly defined API. So we're trying to actually not do more with it, but instead expose more of what it represents as formal APIs.
Question from Surdy. Are we getting the armor toughness and knockback resistance components anytime soon?
I haven't heard any specific plans for either of those, but I don't know. if we plan a drop in the future that touches any of these, or if you really vote for them on any of our platforms for feedback, we would very likely consider them and expose them.
All right, and I think this is our last question for this session from Adam Brightmore. A lot of the secret sauce in Bedrock development is done by the community working together on Discords and so on. What is being done to help new creators develop their skills within this ecosystem? I mean, I can start. This YouTube is one of the things that we're doing. So definitely make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to know everything that we post and any upcoming streams that we have planned. But is there anything else that you guys want to add?
Definitely go to the learning portal. Like our teams actively are always adding more documentation. So like auto-generated documentation gets updated there for all of the APIs like regularly whenever a new release comes out. But we also write a lot of tutorials there whenever we do large features. So our small ones, usually maybe that you only get the auto-generated stuff, but when we do something big, usually a tutorial appears there and then also makes its way onto this channel as well. So it's definitely a great place to see it firsthand before you get the big walkthrough on this channel.
The other thing that I would want to call out, sorry, bro, go ahead.
I was going to say that the other thing that we try to do on our team as we ship new APIs and new components is build things within our team and then use that to then inform tutorials and documentation and all that. So we kind of walk through a creator journey as we build things and then hopefully try to, we test each other's stuff out and then share that with the community. We're trying to do more and more of that.
The other thing that I wanted to call out is I don't think there's anyone here who is working on that, so representing what other people are doing is we're trying to create more tools to actually make it easier for people that are new, because we do understand that modifying a bunch of JSON files and a bunch of just text is complicated and hard to reason about. So we now have an editor tool in the game that will allow you to do your builds more easily. There is MC Tools where you can go and much more easily reason of the JSON files. We have partnership with people. We have Blockbench, which allows you to do. I cannot do animations without Blockbench. It would be impossible for me. So just leverage all of those tools that little by little our team is building or partnering with amazing creators to help build.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for the amazing answers. Thank you guys for the great questions. And stick around for our last session.
Thank you.
See ya.
See y'all.
Bye.